He is obsessive, he is fastidious, he's about 6 feet tall, he's socially awkward. He planned this whole thing out. He went into that home with the intent to kill. There's no indicia of a girlfriend, an ex, a fiance, even a high school girlfriend hasn't been dug up yet. So is this guy an incel? What was his motivation? Would it surprise you to see him, that face staring in your bathroom window?
Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies starts now.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And today, we have a lot to talk about. Today, we're going to discuss several links between Bryan Kohberger and his 4 precious victims. We're going to talk about what was driving Bryan that night. And everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So although the state of Idaho is not required to provide a motive, it would really help with a jury if they had one. Nancy Grace talked about this and said that there was a lot of forensic evidence, but if you don't give them, and she meant the jury, a motive or nexus, you're going to have problems come verdict time. So let's look at 2 potential motives for Bryan so far. First, we know that a law enforcement source is claiming that investigators believe an Instagram account belonging to one of the female victims was messaged privately by Bryan. Now, if you saw my video on the wound collector, then you already know that this type of perpetrator can be motivated by both a real or an imagined slight. Many people don't read their DMs or PMs on social media, and I am one of them. I don't read them because they're generally spam or they're foreign princes who are trapped in a country and need me to send money so they can be rescued. So a lot of us don't read these messages, but Bryan, it would have been either real or perceived. It didn't have to be a real slight. So did Bryan's unanswered DM message turn into a perceived slight? Did this enrage him? We know from the search warrant that a computer tower and fire stick were both removed from Bryan's apartment. So do either of these items connect Bryan to one or more of the victims? Let's talk about motive in just a moment. We're going to dig into this a little bit more deeply, and I also want to share with you new information about Bryan's being at the Mad Greek restaurant in just a moment, so please stay with me. Everything I'm sharing with you today is my opinion, and opinions are not facts, so please don't send any negativity to anyone. Let's be kind to each other. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up so I know you were here. Was Bryan's interaction with either Xana or Maddie at the Mad Greek restaurant, could this be another potential motive? So according to People magazine, Bryan went to the Mad Greek restaurant. He was seen there. Now, both Maddie and Xana worked there. So could this have led into fueling Bryan's rage and led up to what happened on November 13th? In the weeks leading up to November 13th, Bryan, as reported by People magazine, ate at the Mad Greek restaurant at least twice. And according to a former employee, they said that Bryan came in at least twice to grab a vegan pizza, and Maddie and Xana were both servers at this restaurant. Now, we don't know if either of them ever waited on or even interacted with Bryan, but we have learned, according to People magazine, that Bryan followed Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana, all 3 on Instagram. People magazine also reportedly confirmed via an investigator familiar with this case that law enforcement is aware of Bryan's multiple visits to the Mad Greek, and that they have interviewed employees, the owners of the Mad Greek restaurant, and they collected surveillance video from the restaurant along with surveillance video from the businesses nearby. Now, this former employee reportedly told People that there was nothing suspicious about Bryan's visits to the restaurant. He only stood out because he had this particular order, a strict vegan. Apparently, Bryan would check to make sure that his food had not come into contact with animal products. And this is something we've heard from other people about Bryan too, haven't we? So Bryan didn't want to eat food that had come into contact with any animal products, and it seems like he was very, very obsessed with this. Now, what was fueling Bryan's rage that night, and how does this tie into the Papa Roger profile? According to retired FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole, Bryan would have been driven by a hatred for his victims. She described this type of mindset as very dark, not highly impulsive, and not reckless. So, this crime would have been thought out and planned in advance. So was Bryan thrown off that night by the DoorDash delivery and by the fact that Ethan was spending the night? Mary O'Toole described Bryan's mindset as thinking, quote, "I hate this person, they have to die," end quote. Now let's go back and revisit the Papa Roger profile that I shared with you that I believe was Bryan in our chat room on Facebook. Was this profile based on Elliot Rodger? So if you don't know who Elliot Rodger was, he was a really twisted, dark individual who stabbed and shot 6 innocent people in Isla Vista, California back in May of 2014. He posted a bizarre retribution video and emailed an autobiographical document to around 24 people. Now, in this email, Elliot Rodger said he had, quote, "no choice but to exact revenge on society that had, quote, denied him love." So it really does take a sick and twisted mind to just blame these Alpha Pi sorority girls. But he said in his retribution that he had planned to target the Alpha Pi sorority because he deemed that these girls were the best looking or hottest at his college. In fact, he described these girls as, quote, "the kind of girls I've always desired but was never able to have." So this is a really strange, twisted take on the world, and there is a community known as involuntary celibates or incels, and they do blame women for their own sexual failings. So Elliot was their hero. So was Bryan part of this group, and will this computer tower that was removed from his apartment, as revealed to us by the search warrant, will this link Bryan into this group? Now, to be clear, just because someone is involuntarily or voluntarily celibate does not mean they would ever do something like this. This is an extreme mindset, and this incel community has its own kind of creepy, unique lingo, and it helps them define their twisted way of looking at things. This community uses names like Chad and Stacy. Hear me out. So Chad is a male who is genetically superior, who has a strong jawline, is tall, with a low square hairline and nice teeth. And a Stacy is a female with an hourglass figure and big, and a Stacy would be attracted to Chad. Subscribe.